Hi, Kitty. All right, I think we are live officially. Um, okay, yep, I got the error, so it's working. Good morning, happy Monday. I'm Jillian with CEO Consulting Group. I'm the VP of Marketing, Communications, and Strategies. I'm here with Heather McElrath, Sandbox Communications, and Kelly Featheringham with Team Leadership Solutions. Good morning, ladies. Good morning.
Morning.
How was your weekend?
Lovely.
That's good. Warm.
Warm. Super warm, gross warm. Super gross warm, for sure. Well, today we are talking about where the final thing in the mid-year checkup or check-in is the self-care category. And we decided to make this an entire Marketing Monday because a lot of times we get stuck in the day-to-day and we feel like self-care is when we get our nails done or when we get a massage or maybe we just like do a singular thing for ourselves. Yes. Yes, that is a form of self-care. But what happens when your form of self-care doesn't work? What happens when it's not enough? What happens when you have so much going on, whether that's personally, professionally, a combination of both, that your version of self-care is not enough to get you to a place where you don't burn out or completely go into a like full blown like decision fatigue where you just stop. And so today we want to talk about things in this category, including how to recognize it, what to do when you're in it, and then go from there. And so Kelly is going to do the interview today. So Kelly, welcome to the party. It's all you, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I love this topic. I think not because I think it's mostly because I think we need to be aware of it. And it happens, like you said, so often in so many different forms and shapes, and being aware is the first start. So I guess maybe the first question I think maybe we start is go around and just what do you do to help avoid burnout to start?
Heather, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Go for it. You go first.
Sure. So I didn't do anything to avoid it and then I hit it. And so at the end of May, I hit a full-blown burnout and I was showing all the signs of it leading up to it for about 4 months. I was extremely exhausted. I kept saying I was exhausted on repeat, but not understanding how exhausted I really was. And I didn't know, like I was trying to do self-care things, like I would go running, I would go sit by the water, I would draw, I would do things, but I wasn't recharging. And for me, I needed to go all the way back to like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I actually wasn't feeding myself. I was forgetting to hydrate. I was not actually getting quality sleep. I wasn't being social, except for my kids, but I wasn't, and at work in virtual, I wasn't meeting my basic human needs. So for me, it was, I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do because I was taking care of my children, but really by taking care of my children, watching them have their needs met made me think I was meeting my own when I wasn't. And so it put me in a full blown burnout and decision fatigue. And that was, it's been really hard to recover from it because now I have to like, everything I'm doing right now is not on autopilot. So by the time I get to this call right here, I have made so many independent decisions that I'm like, my battery is done. Like it's 9 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, I need to recharge. And it's because of that decision fatigue. So for me, it was what I learned in hindsight was that I wasn't meeting my basic human needs, but I was trying to do my normal like self-care stuff and then not feeding myself or hydrating.
Mm. Yeah, and it's hard once you get to that point.
Mhm.
What about you, Heather? What do you do to help avoid it?
You know, I really try to listen to my body. Even yesterday, it's gonna sound silly, but there are times when I am so tired that I can't watch television. Like that's too much stimulus. And
Mhm.
so when I'm at that point where TV is too much, I just listen to a book or I listen to music or I
Mhm.
just relax. But I have gotten a lot better at listening to w- what my body is saying, even to the point of changing my workouts. So when you say you go running, to me that actually would be counter to what I need, meaning when I'm facing burnout, I need yoga, I need quiet, I need, calmer ways to unwind. And so for me, it really has been about paying attention and
Mhm.
giving myself the grace to make those changes, that I am no longer 20 something or 30 something. Um, and running and high intensity workouts don't work for me. I like yoga, I like calmer, and that works. So giving myself it's okay to change is one of the biggest things. We evolve. It's okay to change. It's okay to evolve what's good for us.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the listening because, like you, I think that paying attention and listening to the signs and then honoring them, right? And giving yourself that permission to change. Because I do feel like sometimes as we get older, we think, especially as women, right? I mean, men age gracefully, right? We just kind of bumble into it. And at least I am, right? And I think that giving ourselves that permission to think that what worked for us 10 years ago or even 5 years ago may not work now. Our lives change, our priorities change, and all of those things. So being able to really listen and then test drive. I'm a big fan of maybe we don't get it right the first combination. You know, Jillian, you're learning about the things that do and don't work, right? So trying different things and re-listening, reviewing, sitting with it and deciding, okay, maybe if I go for a walk instead of a run twice a week and then I run other times, maybe that combination. And sometimes it's a little of trial and error until we get just the right formula that works for us.
Mhm.
And having some fun in the process too, right? I think that that's sometimes we forget about it. We put so much pressure. It's just one more thing that we have to get our self-care routine right. Everybody says we have to have balance. We have to have self-care. We have to do all this. We have to get it right. No, we just have to get it for how it works for us. So I
And
love that.
and can I, you also said balance. And I think it's important to realize that every day isn't going to be 50-50. Some
Yes.
days are going to be 90-10 or 10-90 or 70-30. It is, things are going to happen where you are going to have days that you can't do self-care, but
Mhm.
then you can the next day. Or, I think that's what's important, is to realize that it's perfection does not exist, and really kind of learning to go with the flow, I think will help you relax and will help you find what works for you. And I want to throw this out. I just read this morning. I loved it. It's the first time I've seen this. Fail is first attempt. No, yeah, first attempt in learning.
Oh,
So
I like
we
that.
aren't we aren't failing. It's just our first attempt to learn what works for us. And
Mhm.
we have this thing about failure, and
Mhm.
to me, it's just so frustrating because it's not failure. It's just we found something that didn't work, and that's great. That's
Mhm.
actually a good thing. So now you know what doesn't work. So try something else. So anyway, sorry. I just literally read that this morning. I wanted to share it.
I love that.
No, I do too. I do too. So from I gotta lean a little bit into the leadership thing. From a leadership perspective, we're talking about when we're seeing the signs in ourselves and making sure that we're doing it. But at work, I think over COVID,
Mhm.
there was so much talk about making sure you check in with your employees, make sure they're doing okay, ask them how they are, and leaders really stepped up in a new way in a remote world to check on their people. But now we're kind of back to this mostly normal kind of scenario now. Are we still checking on our employees, and what are some good ways to recognize if our employees can't say to us, hey, I'm struggling right now, how to recognize if they're struggling so that they don't get to the point of no return or the point where they're really having a hard time?
Yeah, I think in this, I like to lean on Simon Sinek and his approach to leadership because he does a really good job of explaining how when you have an employee who performs at, just say this level, I don't know what that level is. Let's just say they perform here and they're consistent. They're always here, they're always here. And all of a sudden you start seeing this.
Yeah.
That's your first indicator that something is wrong. Because people who consistently do this don't do this unless something is wrong. And the reality is, our people are talking to us louder than we are listening oftentimes. And if we are paying attention to their rhythm, their pattern, their speech pattern, what words they use to describe themselves, to describe their day when you start a staff meeting, how their cadence is, how they walk into the room, the body language, their shoulder positioning, how they carry themselves in a chair. If you just, wherever you are, so if you have in person or not, my employees, we're all virtual. So like, I don't see them in person. I see them on a screen and I watch how they show up. I watch how they do their hair or don't do their hair. I watch if they're in PJs and rolling out of bed or if they're dressed up and ready to go. What I'm paying attention to is not a dress code. It's an energy. It's, are they tired or are they sad? Are they burning out? Are they running out of energy? Or did they just not feel good? And maybe they need a day off or permission to slow down, or maybe they need some guidance on how to balance their workload. And so for me, it's taking that time to just generally observe, how do they perform on a regular basis? How do they show up? And then go, that's the measurement of stepping in. And as an example of me learning this as an autistic person who struggles to read it, because subtext is very hard for me. I have an artist, when I was with my own company, with Very Good Marketing Company, my artist Casey, I burnt her out in the top of one of the years. It was like a second year she was working with me, and she had a full-blown work burnout. And I was absolutely devastated. I mean, I think I cried when I called her because I realized what was going on. And it took me a long time to catch up to what was going on. I didn't pay attention to any of those signs of her slowing down. She started making a lot of like errors in her work, which she never did before. And I wasn't catching things. Like, I wasn't, as her boss, I wasn't protecting her from her workload. I wasn't protecting her and showing up for her the way that she needed me to. And then I literally, all of her creativity drained, and she just started to shut down. And as she started to shut down, she started to feel like she was failing. She started to feel like she was becoming less than in her role, like she wasn't valuable in her role, like she couldn't handle her role. But really, it was a failure on my part to recognize it in the moment. And I'm forever grateful that she stayed with me and that she allowed me to apologize and to step in, and that we were able to work a plan for her to take a break and get her creativity back. And she still to this day works with me, and I love her to pieces. But we've been, working together since our Whole Foods Market days. And I wish with my whole heart that I knew that back then, that when someone just does this consistently and you notice this, that's your first flag. Oh, step in and say, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? Let's do a one-on-one. I want to check in. Not because you're doing bad, but because I noticed a change and because I care for you. So for me, that's my thing. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Heather?
I think, yeah, just to echo what Jillian said, is that you do have to be there for your employees. It is, in my view, in leadership position, your mission is to make their lives easier. How do you help them balance what they're doing? How do you ensure that they have the tools, whether those tools are for art or for health? Make sure that they're taken care of so that they can do their best work. So yeah, just noticing when they do dip, I think that that's a real critical, and really having one-on-ones, regular one-on-ones, so that you can notice. It's hard if you go a week or a month without kind of regularly talking to someone to see a change. But when you're constantly in touch with them, it's easier to kind of pick up on those nuances. That's at least how I feel.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all of what you both said. I think that For me, I always worry about asking questions because I don't want to be nosy. I don't want them to think I'm digging into their business. But it was something that I really, especially early on in leadership, when I had my first couple of team members, feeling okay with just checking and being, hey, how are things going? You know, how's life? How was your weekend? Even just simple open the door questions like that, and then learning to listen. Like I'm not prying if I'm just being socially um social, I guess that you would say, right? If I'm just being generally social with them, asking questions about their life and seeming interested, it's amazing how much people will tell you that you don't realize because some people are super oversharers. Other people don't give you a lot of information, but even the people that don't give you a lot of information, kind of like Jillian said, they do tell you things. You know, they'll talk about having to do something as opposed to getting to do something, and they'll talk about it's just a different tone of how they're approaching the conversation that gives you those clues that okay, maybe I need to pull on that thread just a little bit more. And like you said, it's not being nosy or that you're doing anything wrong. I just want to check in and make sure that things are good. How's the deadlines going? How's the timeline? Is there anything I can help you with? Let me know.
Right.
Making sure you kind of lay that groundwork because I think to a certain extent that builds too. You know, in the beginning, you ask it a couple of times and then they realize that they're not gonna get punished or they're not gonna get reprimanded or any of those things. Then they start to feel more and more comfortable with you.
Right,
I think that
exactly. When it goes from the conversation of understanding versus control or reprimanding, punishment energy, then you're building trust. You're stepping in your leadership role at that point. There's a big difference in my mind between being a manager and a leader. Anyone can manage somebody and control what they do and dictate and be that person. Anyone can do that. That's fine if that's how you want to be. But if you're going to inspire and have a ripple effect and leave a legacy, you need to step in your leadership energy. And that leadership energy is your CEO energy. That leadership energy is your visionary energy. You need to be inspiring and change, which means you need to have an emotional intelligence approach to the things you do, meaning you need a higher EQ or you need to be practicing to have a higher EQ, studying it, learning what empathy really does to another person, how it activates someone in your life, especially if they work for you. Because the way you show up for your people, if you show up really, really well for them, they're going to show up really, really well for you. And they're going to be your greatest advocates to your company. You want your people on your team to be your best word of mouth marketers because they're the ones, oh, I do this. Oh, you should meet my boss. She would help you with that. That's
Yeah.
what you want them to do. And they will because they trust you. They will because you're human with them. Remember, anyone can have a job. And if you're in a job where you feel replaceable, you're not going to perform as well if you're in a job where you feel like, sure, literally you're replaceable, but you're also on a team where you're cared for, where your manager will stop and go, hey, I'm noticing something's different. Let's pause. How can I support you right now? There's a big difference between being treated with respect and humanity and care for your whole human self than there is just going, you're a number on on a spreadsheet. We need to make sure we cut you a check, And so I personally like to give people an option for the level of, I don't know if intimacy is the right word to use because some people get uncomfortable with that word, but like the level of intimacy that somebody would want to have with me in a relationship. So like if I'm your boss and you want to be an oversharer, then there's going to be a line there, but I'm open to having one-on-one conversations if you feel like that's what you need to be able to get into your creative zone of genius. I will be a listening ear and then go, okay, great. So now how do we use that to channel you in the right direction? Because creatives oftentimes need an outlet in order for them to be activated. But non-creatives don't tend to need that. More or less, they just want to know that they're doing a good job. So they need a little less coaxing and a little bit more of, hey, I see you're working really hard. Thank you so much. And then they usually get activated for the next thing. But knowing who your people are, knowing what gets them going, and knowing how to identify whether or not they're starting to dip, all of those things just take a little bit of time and effort. Sure.
Can I add something? I think
Yeah.
one thing that we haven't talked about is that our own sharing as a leader, meaning we have to create the environment where it's okay to
To
share.
share.
And sometimes we do that by sharing our own stories, our own struggles, so that it feels safe for those around us to also share. And I think it also says, if I'm willing to share, it's okay, you know, and I think that that's really an important part of it. Um, I'm actually, and this is an interesting conversation because I realize this is actually what I'm trying to do with my students, is I'm trying to get them to come to me when they are struggling and to
Right.
recognize that they don't have to be perfect, that if they have trouble, to come to me so that we can talk it out, so that we can figure out a game plan. And I
Right.
think that kind of environment is one that does come from the leader and kind of trickles down into, you know, being open for conversations.
Right.
Leading by example. I love it. I love it. But we have a couple minutes left, and one thing that we've kind of touched on a little bit here, but since we're talking a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders and things like that, I wanted to touch on real briefly just strategy of making sure how you can build this into your routine or your strategy as a business leader, right? I mean, you think about, we're so busy. I feel like one of the first questions would be like, well, ladies, I have a lot to do. Burnout sounds great and I can fit in a massage here or there, but how do I really like plan for this? How do I get that question a lot for the unexpected things that pop up, right? How do we plan as business leaders to make sure that we have the time and the resources for maintaining our balance, maintaining our self-care? Because really, when it comes down to it, business owners, we got to pay the bills, right? And if it's a matter of I'm going to go get a massage, or I'm going to take an afternoon out to recharge, or I have to take a client call, I'm probably going to call choose the client call, right? Which is maybe not the right decision. So how do we think about it strategically to give ourselves that little bit of room, that runway, so that we can prioritize our self-care?
Yeah, I think that for everyone it'll be a little different. And my advice will be to do this. The first thing is become very aware of your own self. If you are tired but can't sleep, you're on the pathway to a burnout. If you are tired from the time that you wake up to like the time you start work, you're in decision fatigue. Like you're leaning towards it, because if you're having to think through all of those steps that used to be like easy, if something used to be easy and is now hard, you're probably leaning towards a decision fatigue, because your brain is not automatically running through the steps that it used to like taking a shower, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, all that used to be automatic, and you wouldn't get tired after it. But if now doing your morning routine wears you out, you're probably in a decision fatigue. So the self-awareness piece is the first thing, is taking a moment to just go, okay, am I noticing anything different about how my brain is working right now? Is it foggy? Is it focused? Is it clear? Is it confused? Am I just noticing? So just taking a moment to pause. That's the very first thing. Even if you're unable to identify it, but you still can at least say something is not right, that is a good first step, because you're at least getting in tune with yourself enough to say, okay, I'm not sure what it is, but we're just going to keep practicing until we can identify it. That'll be the first step, is that self-awareness. The second thing for me is, once you become self-aware of whatever it is that you are feeling, taking the time to say, what routines or rituals do I need to implement in order to avoid having to make so many choices every day? So I'm an ADHD, which means I'm an autistic with ADHD. So as an autistic person, I crave routines. I need everything very, very, very specific and very, very clearly mapped out. As an ADHD person, I'm like a squirrel at a rave. Like, I can't hold on to routines, and my brain is literally like having a dance party right now, and it's out of control and everything is chaotic, and following routines is really hard. So I struggle really bad. So this is what I've done to help internal battle of my brain. So if this helps you, you don't have to be neurodivergent, but this might help you. On Saturdays, every Saturday, I have 3 things I do on Saturday. I wash my dog every Saturday. He's a service dog and I bring him into like restaurants and stuff. So I think it's important that I keep him clean. I wash my car inside and out, also because I bring my dog everywhere and he sheds. And then I clean my apartment every Saturday. So even if I lose control of my space during the week, it gets reset once a week. On Sundays, every Sunday, I grocery shop and I meal prep every Sunday. No matter what, I grocery shop and I meal prep. These things that I do on Saturday and Sunday at least get me through more than half the week coming up. So no matter how rough my week starts, I am able to at least have the beginning of my week set in a way that I will eat at least 1 full meal a day without skipping it like I was doing before I hit my burnout in the end of May. I had gone 13 days without eating and did not even notice. Did not notice. Wasn't hungry at all. And it's because my body just was not there, just no appetite, nothing. And so it keeps me making sure I eat at least a full, complete, healthy, nutritionally dense meal a day. I pre-fill my water bottles so that they're just grab and go every morning. So I know I'm at least having more than 1 liter a day. And I just make sure that things that I feel are hard, things that make my brain feel foggy or confused or exhausted, I am prepping those things in advance on my Sunday routine for the week. So Sunday is my prep, Saturday is my reset. So if you can figure out what works for you in your work schedule and what you need, that's how I do it. And no matter what pops up, I always hold those things sacred to my routine. So I love friends, but no, not until I'm done with my routine, because these things keep me sane. They make my life easier. And if I do them, I'm at peace. So that's what I do.
It's awesome.
I actually do very similar. Like my weekends are fairly structured, meaning I go to yoga, then I get my groceries, that kind of thing. But I will say one of the things that has made a huge difference for me is managing my calendar differently, meaning I block time where people cannot get me. And it's really helped. Before I was having 8 hours of meetings a day, and now I have time for me, or I have time to take a break. I also, at the beginning of the year, I literally blocked 1 day a month for either work day or do nothing day. And I went through the entire year at the beginning of the year and blocked 1 day where it is all about either getting work done that I may be behind on, or it's about taking a break. And it really is, it's interesting if you can get to a point where you're managing your calendar so that you're also including time for yourself, time to recharge during the week. I think it's really important. And I actually did something fun. I got myself movie tickets for next month on a Tuesday afternoon, because I was like, you know what? One of the benefits of being a self-employed individual is that I can do that. And I wanted to make the time. So I did it a month in advance, meaning I could actually plan for it. But
Yeah.
I think to me, that just illustrates you're in charge of your calendar. So keep some sacred time.
Yeah, I love that. And if you haven't researched, I know we're getting ready to go over, it's 9:30. Y'all can not watch if you don't watch anymore. If you haven't researched the Pomodoro technique for your time management, I think I've seen it, people do it a little different, but I personally, I know like it's 25-minute blocks. I like to do 15-minute blocks. 25 minutes is too long for my ADHD. So I like to do 15-minute blocks. I'll do 3 15-minute blocks and one like empty space for me. So sometimes I go for like, I'll do a 15-minute block, switch tasks, 15-minute block, switch tasks, 15-minute block, switch tasks, and then I'll go for a walk usually. I'll just like lap my building or lap my apartment complex, and I'll come sit down if the weather's nice, or I'll just pace my apartment, because when I pace, it helps my brain unlock. Most of my job is creative, so like I need my brain to unlock when I've been doing tasks. But that way I'm task avoidant, I am demand avoidant. So like if I get a request for something, my body immediately says no. And I have no control over it. It is like having a toddler in my head running my whole body. It's horrible. And it's terrible. So I have to like activate myself. The Pomodoro timing technique is really good for that. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up before we hop off is because a part of self-care and self-awareness is knowing what hobbies and interests you have that also make you feel good. Because when we talk about doing things that make you feel connected with yourself, that happy chemical dump that happens from doing things that bring you joy is an important part of you slowing down before you speed up. And so for me, my hobbies and interests are consistent. I draw, I play guitar, I play piano, I sing, I collect records. I like to run, like literally as a hobby. I genuinely love long distance running. I'm super slow, but I just love to run. And so do my kids, which is super rare. We're just a bunch of weird kids running around and drawing on stuff. So like these are our interests, and my kids do them with me. And I also like Legos, so I build Legos. And this is what we do, but sometimes I need all of them in one day. So 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15. And I touch them all 15 minutes each, because sometimes I need all of those happy chemicals and I just need them. But I'm so self-aware that I can do that. And I have all my hobbies and interests set up in specific places that I can touch them. So set your life up in a way that you can easily grab your guitar, whatever your interest is, and play it for 15 minutes. Set your life up in a way that you can put that time block on your calendar in the middle of the day to, draw that picture, to sing that song, to, write, or whatever it is that brings you joy. Read that book, like set the time on your calendar, like Heather's saying, because sometimes we need the happy chemical dump in the middle of the day to help us feel better about how we're moving through our day. And it's okay to block time for that.
I want to touch on one thing real quick before we leave, because I can hear people in the audience saying, I don't have time. Something unexpectedly comes up all of the time, because that's always when I talk calendar, that's the first thing is unexpected things come up every day. I can't get anything done. Overestimate everything. Overestimate everything that you put on your calendar. If you're going to have a meeting and you book it for an hour, if you're done in 50 minutes, end in 50 minutes. Overestimate everything, not crazily, but if it's 5-10 minutes over, that is found time throughout your day, and be intentional about how you use that found time. Put some sticky notes on your computer with your list. Like you said, go for a walk. Use those found 5 and 10 and 15 minutes to do those things that you don't normally get to do. Because when we overestimate, we have that time for the unexpected things that come up.
And hold that space sacred. I cannot tell you how many times I've talked to people who are like, well, I put it on the calendar, but something comes up and I just got to go take care of it. When you put it on the calendar, I'm going to say this, please don't hate me. I'm going to say it with the little kid heart, the cool generation heart. Okay. If you put it on your calendar, and unless you have an emergency reason to not, do it, you're disrespecting yourself. So
Don't ghost yourself.
yeah, you're literally ghosting yourself. So like, don't do that. Don't be the person who abandons yourself.
Yeah.
I was that person for a very long time. I always put my needs, wants, and desires aside, and I would just go, oh, I no longer have those. I'm going to go do what everybody else wants. And then wondered why I was so unhappy all the time, surrounded by people, and felt lonely all the time. Always could not figure out why my life felt so lonely, even in a world full of people. And it's because I was abandoning myself over and over again by not saying yes to me and the things that I wanted, which usually was solitude with an dartboard. So remember, if you put it on your calendar, unless there's a real reason to not go, of course, you know what you need to do with your life. Be mindful of it, respect it, show up for yourself. You deserve to show up for yourself. You deserve the time that you're blocking for yourself. You're planning your life for yourself. When you show up well for yourself, you show up well in every category of your life.
Good job.
All right, we went over 6 minutes. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We appreciate you. We will see you next week for Marketing Monday. And are we in July already, or are we still in June next week?
June 30th.
June 30th. All right, well, we're closing out June finally. Okay, so last call will be in July. Get everything on the checklist done if you haven't already. Mid-year checklist. Here comes Q3 and 4. We're here. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you hopping on today.
Have a great day.